Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another Haolonggood release, and not just any release. We've got ourselves another of these 1/20th scale statues, as we have the Pachyrhinosaurus. You can see the species name in the scale, as well as the Haolonggood logo here on the box, and that's about all you're going to see, because once you take a look at the box elsewhere, outside of the inner box being blue, there is really nothing else going on with these boxes. Not even like info on the bottom or anything. It's just basically a solid black box with a blue inside box and a little bit of information on the front. So let's pop this box open and check out our Pachyrhinosaurus. So first of all, we have the base for the Pachyrhinosaurus, and as much as I liked the base for the Daspletosaurus, I will say I do like this base a little bit more. There's just something really nice about the vegetation and stuff on the base, as well as this little cool kind of like a puddle. Kind of makes me think that maybe there's like a stream moving through, and this is just one little area that has, you know, like a smaller section where maybe some fish could inhabit, though they didn't add any, which would have actually been super cool now that I think about it. But the base does look really, really nice, just like it did for the Daspletosaurus. And then the Pachyrhinosaurus itself, and look at how beautiful that is. Like, this is shockingly even better than I was expecting it to be. I would say even better than the Daspletosaurus. The paint job on this is absolutely gorgeous, incredibly realistic, also quite flashy, but extremely natural. I don't know exactly what direction this guy's supposed to go on the base. I think it's probably the other way, but we're going to put him on like this just for right now to take a look at him here. But you can see it looks awesome, honestly. The sculpt is really beautifully done. Not too much going on when it comes to the pose or anything, just kind of makes it look like it's walking through. If it were turned around, maybe I would think it was trying to get a drink, which, like I said, I think that might be the way it's supposed to be facing. But again, the pose kind of similar to the original release of the Pachyrhinosaurus in the main line of Haolonggood, where there's not just a whole lot going on with it. Kind of seems like it's just walking along. There's nothing wrong with that. It looks nice and natural. And again, the Pachyrhinosaurus itself here is on another level of beauty. I would definitely say this is the single best Pachyrhinosaurus that I now have in my collection without even taking a closer look at it. But we're going to go ahead and do that right now anyway and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Pachyrhinosaurus, you can really now see in a nicer light how gorgeous this is. And not just with the sculpt, but the paint. There is a massive amount of paint application to this one, giving this probably one of the absolute best factory paint jobs I've ever seen on a dinosaur model. It just looks incredibly lifelike and realistic. Looks like it came pretty much straight off of a paleo artist's desk, where you would pay tons and tons of money to get a paint job this good. But you can see when you get nice and close, we've got the detailing sculpted really nicely on this. A good bit of variation to the scale detail. As you can see, larger scales kind of up here behind the eye, almost like scoot-like scales and stuff. Finer scaling as you move down here, closer to the snout and the nostrils and stuff. Larger scaling again as you move down into the lower jaw. There's just a ton of really nice scale detail on the face of the Pachyrhinosaurus, as well as a lot of skin kind of movement and stuff shown with the positioning of the face and the head and everything, which again looks really good. You can see tons and tons of variation of color on this, and honestly, I would never even attempt to point out each and every color. There's just way too much going on here in the face of the Pachyrhinosaurus to fully examine it and give you every color that I see. I could see variations of greens, browns, blues, like tans, whites, all sorts of stuff. There is just tons and tons of color, and it's been applied with nice dry brushing techniques, washes, all sorts of different techniques to paint this dinosaur to, again, give it an extremely realistic look. You can see as you lead up here, the nostrils also sport like a slight kind of a pinkish tone running along the edge. The beak is painted with two different variations of dark browns. Kind of looks like there was a fairly dark brown, and then they applied a darker brown in like a wash-like fashion to give it a little variation of color. The detailing in the beak as well is fantastic. All sorts of, like, you know, cracks and crevices and stuff that helps to add a nice bit of realism. As you lead up here toward that big bump on the Pachyrhinosaurus snout, you can see you've got a little variation of color here as well, with like some almost like yellowish browns right there. And the actual texturing and detailing detailing in that area again is absolutely fantastic. We do have a lighter tone as you move up here. You can see a darker wash that's been applied, as well as kind of like some spots here and there when it comes to the way that that is painted as well. The eye is painted very nicely. You can see we've got like a white, and then you have like a black ring around an orange eye with a black pupil, and it supports a very nice gloss coat. So some really nice precision painting done in there. And again, as you lead up here into the frill of our Pachyrhinosaurus, not only do you see like the spikes and stuff up here, as well as some nice armored scutes moving up, you can also see, again, just like with the face, a ton of variation of color applied, as well as beautiful scale detail up here, again in varying sizes as you move up here toward the top of the frill. I love that they start out these spikes on the top of the frill with a darker tone, and they transition very smoothly to lighter tones for the tips. And as you lead along to the other side, you can again see the paintwork on this is absolutely fantastic. Definitely, like I said, one of the single best painted factory produced paint jobs I've ever seen. And again, same thing over here. As you move back, you can see the ear sculpted back here, and they've even applied a little pinkish tone there around the ear to highlight that area as well. And then as we move back into the neck, now that we've switched sides, we're over here. The dinosaur's looking away from us ever so slightly, but you can see all sorts of really nice skin wrinkles and folds and stuff back there in the neck. As you move back, you can see the throat, and again, even more variation of color down here on the underside of the dinosaur in the throat area. If you lead back up here, let me see if maybe we can get a better view. Nope, definitely not. Worse view over there. If you look at the back of the frill, you can see that there's like a nice light wash that's been applied to really highlight all of that scale detail on the back of the frill as well, which looks really, really good. We again have that same sort of paintwork as you move down here into the top of the neck. But then it starts to transition to a variation of a green, and you can see a darker green has been applied, dry brushing out quite a bit of the detail. Moving back, there's like a line of osteoderms following along the spinal column, but then there's also some osteoderms here on the side of the dinosaur, just randomly basically placed throughout, and you can see an extremely flashy look to the coloration of this one. As you move back into the body, you can see we've got variations of browns. We've also got like other variations of browns kind of like patterning through, and then you lead into the stomach, and it lightens up massively, and then has this really nice design with like some yellowish greens and other variations of greens all throughout. And then as you lead further down into the stomach, again, we transition to some more alternate tones of color, more variations of browns and stuff. Just so much color on this Pachyrhinosaurus. And they've also given it some really nice dry brushing techniques to highlight a lot of the scale detail and skin texture to make it just pop so realistically. And again, the actual sculpt and detail looks fantastic as you move through. You can kind of make out the shoulder blade, but as you move down, you can also see again the front leg looks really good when it comes to the sculpt and fine detail, as well as again the massive amount of paint work as we move down. You've got the elbow right there. As you lead down, you can see the leg transitioning to a variation of a brown, but again with a light wash. Moving down into the foot, the wrist is sculpted nicely. The toes also sculpted quite nicely. You can see the nails are painted with a dark gray, and they also have a bit of a shine to them. As you lead back up, you've got some skin wrinkles and folds and stuff down here in the lower part of the stomach. As you lead up here into the back of the dinosaur, you can see that we now have the hip bone shining, and we have a very cool, very vibrant green up here that shows up that definitely makes this area of the dinosaur pop. And you can see it even lightens to a lighter shade of green with other variations of greens mixed in as you lead down here into the thigh. And we have more of that dark brown patterning picking up here and there, more dry brushing highlighting all of that scale detail. As you move down, you've got the kneecap again right here in the front of the leg. You've got a nice big bulging calf muscle as you move down, and then you lead down and you can see how the dinosaur is taking a step as this foot is just picking up off of the ground. You can see the nice curvatures to the toes as it does so. You've also got like some sort of pinkish tones moving along the back of the leg as you lead up here into the tail, and again all sorts of skin wrinkles and creases as you lead out into the tail. The tail actually curves away from us on this side, and again the beautiful paintwork here on the underside, beautiful sculpt work everywhere. This thing is honestly, when it comes to a Pachyrhinosaurus, I would say this is a masterpiece. And then as you move back here, you can see the ear again highlighted with that pinkish tone. You've got all the really nice looking skin texture and scale detail and everything everything, as well as the skin folds. And then you see pretty much the same thing when it comes to the paintwork and the patterning and the designing and everything over here. I love how they've highlighted all of these scales back here with that dry brushing of that darker tone. It just looks so nice. And again, the only real big difference over here is the positioning of the legs. You can see this front leg is currently in the process of taking a step, whereas the other leg on that side is kind of just standing still. This leg is planted, where on the other side that leg was picking up off of the ground. So the legs are just a little closer together on this side compared to what we saw on the initial side. And again, you can see a little less of the stomach over here because of that. And then you lead out again with a nice curve in the tail leading toward us. And then as you move along the underside, again, you've got lighter tones, really subtle variation of color. You have a cloaca right there. And again, the nice pinkish tones mixing with other variations of color here. Moving along the underside, you've got a bit of a belly for our Pachyrhinosaurus. And again, more gorgeous scale details. So easily, in my opinion, the single best Pachyrhinosaurus that I have. And then we've got the base, and the base, as I had already mentioned, looks awesome. It looks like a genuine, real piece of the earth. There's something on there. I don't know what that is. Maybe like a little hair or something that came with it. But other than that, the base looks like a genuine piece of the earth. We've got like some slight vegetation here, almost like a mossy sort of vegetation that moves through. And the rocks and everything, again, like the stone area here where our Pachyrhinosaurus is walking through, all has a very realistic look, as well as a very realistic paint job. They've applied lots of variation of color, nice dry brushing techniques again to highlight that detail perfectly. And then as you move over here, you can again see more variation of color, even more water kind of leading down here, definitely giving me the idea of this being some sort of a stream where our Pachyrhinosaurus is currently kind of walking up on to get a drink. You can see a little vegetation over here, nice plant sticking up, and again that little pond type area. It's not really a pond, but kind of like a puddle sort of area here looks really good. I like that they've painted it with kind of like a mossy, sort of like an underwater mossy green that they have going on there. And again, you move back, you've got another plant, kind of like a fern plant right here. And again, it just looks absolutely as realistic and lifelike as it gets, and is definitely a beautiful, beautiful base. Probably my favorite base that Haolonggood has released so far. And then you can see on the underside, again, this was actually the number 2 release from Haolonggood. So that means I have 2 and 3 because the Daspletosaurus was number 3. Unfortunately, I don't have number 1. I'll have to figure out what one that one was. But you can see again, it is 99 of 199, so a very small number when it comes to that limited edition number. And again, a beautiful base to go with an amazing Pachyrhinosaurus. So we now have the Pachyrhinosaurus on the base and looking more natural facing this direction. I feel like this was definitely the way to go when it comes to displaying it, but you can now get a good idea of the overall visual and how insanely impressive this is. Previously, I would have said like there was that one company that always created amazing statues with incredible paint jobs for being factory-produced paint jobs. That would have been Musi. And I have reviewed some of their stuff a long time ago, but honestly, I would say Haolonggood easily is doing just as great of a job, maybe even a better job than Musi when it comes to their statues. And I know they had a Dilophosaurus statue that was supposed to be coming out, and fingers crossed that is still in the works, because after seeing these two, I would definitely love to get my hands on that Dilophosaurus statue. But you can see again, it looks absolutely incredible here standing before us. As far as the size goes for the Pachyrhinosaurus, lengthwise, you are looking at just a hair under a foot long, so about 12 inches or a little over 30 centimeters. Yeah, a little over, approaching 30 and a half, but not quite there. And then as far as the height goes, I guess when it's on the base we'll measure it, but it's not going to be a true height. You're about 7 inches or around 18 centimeters. And then if we actually take it off the base here, slide it over for just a minute, and then we get a height standing off of the base, you're looking at about 6 inches or around the, I would say 15, maybe a little over 15 centimeter mark. For size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our Pachyrhinosaurus. And you can see at 1/20th scale, it's very nicely sized. It's not like absolutely gigantic, but definitely very nice and very impressively sized as a whole. And then for another size comparison next to the original mainline release of the Pachyrhinosaurus from Haolonggood, you can see that the mainline release is a lot smaller, of course, because it's 1/35th scale compared to 1/20th scale. But you can also see that the two figures are actually very similar in pose, but almost flip-flopped. It's like they reversed the figure as a whole, because the left leg is now back for the Pachyrhinosaurus and the statue. It was the right leg leaning back for the smaller mainline release and stuff. But they're not, I think, exact, but they're extremely, extremely similar, just kind of flip-flopped or reversed, I guess you could say, as far as the overall figure goes. And then for one more final size comparison with this Pachyrhinosaurus before I put this guy up on the shelf and, you know, basically have him displayed where I will no longer be pulling him down, we've got the Daspletosaurus, again from Haolonggood 1/20th scale. So we've got the two different statues that I have currently from Haolonggood, and you can see how absolutely gorgeous they both are. I honestly cannot recommend grabbing these statues enough. They are both awesome, and they look super cool next to each other. So this Haolonggood 1/20th scale Pachyrhinosaurus statue is absolutely gorgeous. You know, I really, really love that Daspletosaurus, and I did not expect anything to really top that in the statue line from Haolonggood, but this Pachyrhinosaurus may have done it. It is just absolutely incredible here. The sculpt is, of course, beautiful. It's extremely highly detailed and showing off one of the absolute best-looking Pachyrhinosaurus recreations that I've ever seen. It is unbelievable here in hand when it comes to the sculpt and fine detail, but man, oh man, is that paint job good. And when I had originally seen the images for it, I thought, well, it looks really cool, but maybe the colors are a bit too flashy for it or something along those lines. But Haolonggood completely proved me wrong, because here in person, it looks so unbelievably natural and really has shown me how flashy dinosaurs could have been when it comes to their colors, while still definitely looking natural and like the colors that I could imagine it being. They did a great job of applying so many different tones of color on this that it's actually crazy. I can't imagine, honestly, how long it took the factory to paint these guys, because there's just so many very, very subtle minor additions of color added to this that I could probably spend all day sitting here trying to pick them all out, and I really don't know that I could do it. And it's also applied in an incredibly realistic and lifelike way. They've used all sorts of dry brushing and washes and all kinds of different techniques to give us, and of course airbrushing, you can very clearly see, but to give us one of the best painted dinosaur models that I've ever seen. And on top of the incredible Pachyrhinosaurus, we also have a really nice base, giving this just that extra bit of awesomeness that this model necessarily didn't really need, but absolutely benefits from, because you've got that really cool base with the water on it, kind of making it look like maybe it's approaching a waterfall and maybe about to take a drink or something. That's sort of almost the way that I feel. But by far one of, if not the best Haolonggood releases that I have ever seen right here before me. This Pachyrhinosaurus, as I said earlier, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. So if you are interested in picking this up, I don't know for sure if it's still available, but I will include a link in the description to where I purchased it from Lana Time Shop. And if it is still available, again, you can head right to that link and then go check this out. Grab one for yourself if you want one, and I highly recommend that if you are interested, you just place that order. You will definitely not be disappointed. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.